Of course, I would have fallen for you if you weren't such a walking disaster, Alex muttered, voice laced with both irritation and a reluctant fondness. Ethan laughed softly, a sound like sunlight through leaves. Funny. I thought the disaster was you, Mr. Perfect Alpha. Alex froze mid-step, the echo of Ethan's words cutting deeper than he wanted to admit. He had always been used to control. Everything in his life was carefully planned, meticulously executed: his career, his reputation, even his heart. Yet here was Ethan, this gentle beta with an almost reckless softness, unafraid to step into his storm, unafraid to see past the armor he'd spent decades forging. It was ironic, really. The powerful alpha, feared in boardrooms and courted in social circles, had never felt quite so powerless as when Ethan's warm gaze pinned him in a quiet corner of a bustling coffee shop. That gaze didn't demand anything, didn't try to bend him to another's will. It just looked, and in that simple act, it unsettled him utterly. Ethan was seated across from Alex, knees tucked under him on the small wooden chair, sipping his latte with a serene composure that only seemed to make Alex twitch more impatiently. "You're staring again," Ethan said, a playful tilt to his lips. "It's unhealthy." Alex exhaled sharply, running a hand through his dark hair. "I'm not staring. I'm observing." He caught Ethan's amused smirk and groaned inwardly. How did someone so seemingly delicate manage to rattle him like this? How could a person whose life seemed entirely his own, whose voice was soft enough to almost whisper, make him feel as if he had been stripped bare? "You look like a caged lion," Ethan teased, leaning back slightly, fingers brushing against the rim of his cup. "Doesn't it get tiring, pretending everything is under control all the time?" Alex clenched his jaw, a flicker of irritation mingling with an unfamiliar vulnerability. "Control is what keeps the chaos from swallowing everything. Unlike some people, I don't get to just sit back and laugh at life." Ethan tilted his head, eyes softening. "And yet, somehow you're still here, talking to me." His words weren't mocking, they were gentle, patient, yet curiously probing. "So maybe you're tired of the cage too." A strange heat spread through Alex's chest. He hated feeling exposed, hated the way his defenses crumbled without a single physical confrontation. And yet, he could not pull himself away from the beta sitting so calmly in front of him. He noticed the subtle details. The light catching in Ethan's hazel eyes, the faint crease at the corner of his mouth, the quiet confidence in how he held himself. Nothing screamed power, yet somehow Ethan commanded it anyway, with the quietest strength imaginable. "You're exhausting," Alex muttered, finally giving in to a faint smile. Ethan grinned. "Exhausting is kind of my specialty, but I promise, I'm worth it." The words hit Alex differently than anything else ever had. He wanted to scoff, wanted to deny it, but the truth pressed heavily against his chest. He had always equated love with conquest, with mastery over another's heart, but Ethan wasn't someone to be mastered. He couldn't be forced into submission, couldn't be boxed into expectations. And for some infuriating, undeniable reason, that terrified Alex and intrigued him in equal measure. That evening, they found themselves wandering the quiet streets of Boston, city lights reflecting off the wet pavement from an earlier rain. Alex's hands were shoved deep into the pockets of his coat, tension radiating from every line of his body. Ethan, on the other hand, walked with a lightness that seemed impossible to resist, humming under his breath like the world held no burdens at all. "You do know," Ethan said suddenly, glancing up at him with that same calm intensity, "that you're making this way too easy for me to like you?" Alex stopped, one hand gripping his coat so tightly his knuckles whitened. "You're not supposed to be easy to like," he muttered, more to himself than to Ethan. His usual composure was slipping. The alpha in him, the version of himself that had survived by controlling every interaction, every emotion, was failing spectacularly. Ethan laughed, soft and melodious, reaching out to gently tap Alex's arm. "I'm not trying to make it easy. I'm just here." That small gesture, the lightest touch, sent an electric jolt straight through Alex's chest. He looked down at the hand brushing his sleeve, heart hammering in a rhythm he didn't recognize. His mind raced, every instinct screaming to pull back, to regain control, but a deeper, softer instinct whispered something terrifyingly thrilling. Stay. And so he stayed. They ended up on a secluded rooftop, the hum of the city far below, the sky a deep indigo scattered with the first stars of night. Alex leaned against the railing, arms crossed, glaring at nothing in particular while Ethan sat beside him, knees brushing. The closeness was maddening, and Alex hated it. Hated it and yet couldn't imagine moving away. You know, Ethan began, voice soft, I didn't come here to break you. I came here because I think you might be tired of being unbroken. Alex's heart skipped, a mixture of irritation and yearning tangling painfully in his chest. That's a dangerous assumption, he murmured. Ethan shrugged, eyes never leaving his. I like dangerous assumptions. It was the way Ethan said it, so sincere, so steady, so unabashedly himself, that made Alex's carefully constructed walls quake. Here was someone who could see him, see past the armor, past the reputation, past the ruthless alpha persona. And rather than recoil, Ethan leaned in slightly, an unspoken invitation lingering in the cool night air. Alex's breath caught. He hated how much he wanted to lean in too. He hated the way his chest felt like it might betray him any second. And yet, somewhere deep down, a part of him, the part he had long neglected, was desperate to trust, desperate to let someone see the alpha crack, the beta within himself emerge. You really think I can? Alex started, voice rough, uncertain. You can? Ethan interrupted gently, almost tenderly. You just have to let yourself. A silence fell between them, not awkward, not uncomfortable, simply heavy with possibility. Alex's gaze softened as he looked at Ethan, the beta whose gentleness was so disarming it had rendered him completely defenseless in the most human, intimate way. And maybe that was the point. Maybe this wasn't about control, wasn't about power. Maybe love, real, terrifying, beautiful love, was about surrender. Ethan reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from Alex's forehead, fingers lingering. The touch was electric yet calming, commanding yet tender. Alex closed his eyes, leaning slightly into the contact, heart hammering in defiance of logic. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt seen, really seen, and it scared him more than any boardroom battle ever had. I'm not perfect, Alex whispered, almost to himself, almost afraid to hear the answer. You don't have to be, Ethan said, voice warm, unwavering. Not for me. And in that moment, amidst the quiet hum of a city that never truly slept, Alex realized something that had always eluded him. Maybe strength wasn't about never breaking, but about daring to be fragile with the right person. Maybe love wasn't about conquest, but about trust. And for Ethan, the gentle beta with a heart wider than the world, maybe this powerful alpha, so intimidating to everyone else, was simply someone who finally needed to be loved, unshielded, unguarded. Alex opened his eyes slowly, meeting Ethan's steady gaze. For the first time, he didn't look to dominate, to control, to command. He simply looked. And in that look, a promise was forming, a promise neither of them could yet put into words, but both could feel. A soft smile curved Ethan's lips. You're going to be okay, Alex. I promise. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, feeling. For the first time in a long time, something he didn't dare name yet, but it felt like hope. It felt like warmth. It felt like home. The days that followed were a strange mixture of chaos and calm. Alex found himself thinking about Ethan at the oddest moments, while reviewing reports in his sleek office, while brushing his teeth in the early morning silence, even while negotiating some trivial business deal. There was a pull he could no longer deny, a magnetic force that seemed to tether him to that gentle beta who had somehow penetrated his carefully constructed walls. Ethan, for his part, was patient in a way that both infuriated and comforted Alex. He didn't rush, didn't pressure. He simply existed in Alex's orbit, gentle and steadfast, offering small gestures that carried enormous weight. A hand on the small of Alex's back as they passed each other in the hallway. A quiet smile across a crowded room. Messages that said nothing more than, I'm here. At first, Alex resisted. He barked orders at himself, reminding himself of who he was. The alpha, the one in control, the one who always planned and executed with precision. But every time he resisted, he found himself thinking of Ethan's touch, of Ethan's laugh, of the way he made the world feel both enormous and intimate at the same time. It was maddening and yet undeniably intoxicating. One evening, Alex found himself on that same rooftop. The city spread out beneath them like a glittering tapestry. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of rain from earlier, and for a moment, the alpha in Alex relaxed entirely. He looked at Ethan and saw not just a beta, not just a potential partner, but a force of nature that had quietly, persistently reshaped his world. "You know," Alex began, voice lower than usual, almost vulnerable, "I've spent my entire life thinking strength meant never showing weakness." Ethan's eyes softened, his fingers brushing lightly against Alex's. "And now," Alex hesitated, searching for words that didn't come easily. "Strength might be knowing who you can trust, who you can let in." Ethan leaned closer, their knees brushing once more, heartbeats syncing in a rhythm both new and familiar. "Then maybe it's time to let me in." Alex swallowed hard, the weight of fear and desire mingling. But unlike before, this time he didn't pull back. He reached for Ethan, fingertips grazing the other's hand. And in that contact, a quiet explosion of emotion rippled through him. There was relief, excitement, and a profound sense of belonging all tangled together. "I think," Alex whispered, "I'm ready." Ethan's smile was gentle, almost reverent. "Good, because I've been ready for you for a long time." They didn't need words after that. The rooftop, the city lights, the gentle evening air, they all bore witness as Alex leaned forward, closing the distance, allowing their lips to meet in a kiss that was both tentative and electric. It wasn't a grand declaration, no fireworks, no dramatic gesture. It was simpler, deeper. It was real. As the days turned into weeks, their relationship blossomed quietly but profoundly. Alex discovered the joy in small, intimate moments. Breakfast in bed on lazy Sunday mornings, quiet walks through Boston Common, shared laughter over ridiculous late-night movies. He learned to appreciate the strength in vulnerability, to embrace imperfection, and to find comfort in the steady warmth of Ethan's presence. Ethan, meanwhile, reveled in the subtle shifts he saw in Alex. The alpha who had once seemed untouchable now laughed more freely, softened his rigid edges, and occasionally allowed himself to be guided, not commanded, by the gentle beta who had changed everything. They touched, held, and comforted each other, creating a rhythm that was both playful and profound. One particularly rainy afternoon, they found themselves in Ethan's small apartment, the windows fogged with condensation, the sound of rain drumming softly against the glass. Alex had been tense all day, a cascade of work stress threatening to spill over. Ethan didn't speak. He simply reached out, tugging Alex into his lap and wrapping him in an embrace that was grounding, protective, and tender. "You don't have to do everything alone," Ethan murmured, pressing a gentle kiss to Alex's temple. "I'm here, always." Alex closed his eyes, letting the tension melt, realizing that for the first time in years, he truly felt safe. Not because the world had changed, but because he had someone to face it with, someone who saw him, all of him, and didn't flinch. Their love grew not through grand declarations or dramatic rescues, but through patience, understanding, and quiet acts of devotion. Alex learned to laugh again, to forgive himself for imperfections, to surrender without fear. Ethan learned to embrace passion without losing his gentle core, finding joy in leading when needed and yielding when appropriate. One evening, months after that first rooftop meeting, they returned there intentionally, the skyline painted in the soft oranges and purples of sunset. Alex had a small box in his pocket, one he had nervously fiddled with all day. "Ethan," he began, voice slightly shaky, heart pounding, "these past months, you've changed my life in ways I didn't think possible. You've taught me that love isn't about control, and strength isn't about armor. It's about trust. It's about being seen." Ethan's eyes glistened in the fading light, lips parted slightly, heart swelling with anticipation. And, Alex continued, kneeling before him, pulling out the small box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to love you, fully, without walls, without pretenses. Will you marry me? Tears welled in Ethan's eyes, and he laughed softly, a sound so full of happiness it made Alex's heart ache. Yes, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. 1,000 times, yes. They embraced, the city sprawling beneath them, a silent witness to their joy. And in that embrace, Alex felt the culmination of everything he had ever feared and desired. Love that was fearless, tender, and unbreakable. From that day on, their lives intertwined in a harmony neither could have imagined alone. They faced challenges. Of course, life always presented them, but now they faced them together, each one strengthened by the other's presence. The Alpha had learned to lower his armor. The Beta had found a love that embraced him fully. And so, in the quiet moments and the grand ones, in laughter and in tears, Alex and Ethan built a life that was not perfect, but perfectly there's a life defined by trust, tenderness, and the extraordinary beauty of a love that refused to be anything but real. As they stood on that rooftop once more, hands entwined, watching the sunset bleed into the night, Alex realized he had discovered something more powerful than any career triumph, any social conquest, any carefully guarded reputation. He had discovered a heart brave enough to love and be loved in return. Ethan leaned against him, resting his head on Alex's shoulder. You've changed, he murmured softly. Alex smiled, kissing the top of his head. No, you've changed me. You always did. And there, in the fading glow of the city lights, two hearts beat in unison, Alpha and Beta, equal in love, unstoppable in devotion, and infinitely alive in the magic of each other. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.